Greetings, Planeteers, and welcome to another X-Planet video. My name is Lionel Miranda, and today we are going to be talking about, wait a second, we'll grab this box right over here, Triumph and Treachery. Triumph and Treachery, it came out a little while ago. It is basically Warhammer as a multiplayer game. The box contains rules for scenarios and really neat items to take that kind of game and bring it to a multiplayer way, multiplayer type style of game. Sorry. Let's look at the contents of the game. Now, right here, when you open this box, you get, I'll show it to you right here, the Triumph and Treachery book, which I'll get into obviously in a few moments. Turn player cards, a whole bag of really cool coins, the bag made of the finest neoprene in the industry, and of course the actual Triumph and Treachery deck. Now, since this is a multiplayer game, you have to kind of decide who's going to be able to go first, second, third, or what have you. Now, what they've done with this is they made it change every round, and how they've done it are with these cards right over here. You actually take each one of these cards and associate it with a player. So, for instance, I'm going to be the axe. Well, Mike, guy behind the camera, love you, Mike, is going to be the hammer. Then we got Ian, the sound guy, is going to be the shield. Now, when we're playing the game, at the beginning of every round, we take these cards, we shuffle them, and then we flip them over, and it tells us who's going to be going. And we do that at the beginning of every round. So you never know exactly who's going to be going first, which is cool enough. Now, so that's neat. The other really cool thing are these coins. Now, these coins are very cool. So now the objective of the game is the player with the highest pay chest wins. Much like in life, ladies love gamers, but ladies love guys with money more. So unlike this game, we got brass coins, we got silver coins, we got gold coins, and then you got these giant, here, I'll put it right there, these giant gold ingots. Now, the way that works is these are valued at 50, 150, 250, and 1500. Now, what do all these numbers mean? When I'm talking about the numbers, I'm actually talking about it in points. So when you're playing Triumph and Treachery, anytime you destroy a unit, you ask your opponent how many points that unit was worth, and you round it to the closest denomination in coins. So if a unit was worth 150 points, well, guess what? You're going to get a silver coin added to your pay chest. If the unit was worth 180 points, guess what? You're still going to get that silver coin added to your pay chest, because 180 is not good enough to get the 250 or any combination thereof. Now, if you get really close on these cards, or I say these coins, the coins are actually embossed. That's a neat little detail, I gotta say. I appreciate stuff like that, and it just makes the coins that much cooler. Now, the coins are pretty much the fuel of this game. So the objective is to have the most coins in the game, but then you got to weigh something else as well. The treachery cards. Now, these treachery cards are used in the game, and there's several ways of getting them. You get them at the beginning of every round. So here they are right here. I'll fan them out over here too. You get them at the beginning of every round. Plus, you can also trade them with other players in the game. And that is very cool, because you can actually start forming little alliances with people. Say if one player gets ahead, you could start, hey, you know what? You need this more than I do. Tell you what, I'll just give this to you. You could be a little bit more mercenary about it as well. It's like, well, you know what? What do you got for this card? You give me a brass coin or a silver coin because you need it that bad? I'll then sell this card to you. You could also trade cards, one for another card, whatever you wish. And that's just part and parcel of Triumph and Treachery. Now, some of these cards actually cost you coins to play. So, for instance, let's see here. We will start off with Misdirection. I'll put it right here. Get a little bit close up on that. So, Misdirection here actually costs a brass token, a victory brass token, to actually play it. So, Yes, you need the coins to win the game. The guy with the most coins wins the game. But sometimes you got to make decisions. You go, you know what? I'm just going to have to invest a few of my resources to cash in this card. And for instance, Misdirection, amazing little card right here. Play when a wizard is nominated to cast a spell. Discard 1 brass victory token and pick the target of the spell. So the guy's about to go pit of shades on you. Go, hold on 1 second. You know what? I'm going to pay this coin. And that pit of shades is going to hit something unimportant way off in the corner. And there's all sorts of cards in the actual Triumph and Treachery deck that allow you to misdirect, stop someone from marching. And depending on how big your chest is depending on how many cards you get per turn. So if the guy's just kicking butt throughout the whole entire game, well, guess what? That guy's only going to get 1 card at the beginning of the turn. Whereas the guy who's not doing so hot in the game at that moment, he gets a few extra cards to kind of even things out. Now we get to the scenarios. In the book, there's a whole bunch of multiplayer scenarios, like everything Games Workshop does, and I'll just kind of move these out of the way here. Games Workshop does a great job of presenting their product. No big giant surprise there. They not only produce beautiful models, but the quality of their books and the way they present them are absolutely fantastic. The images in here are great. Like I said, it obviously includes all the rules on how to play with more than 1 player, of course. And if you keep on flicking through the book, they start introducing a really, really cool thing. Mercenaries. So you have 1 army, and now you can start to dabble in another. And how the mercenaries work is for every 500 points you guys decide to play amongst your group, you get 100 points of mercenaries. And those mercenaries can be picked from any existing army list that's out right now. So for instance, you could be a high elf player, and you know what? You've always wanted to start an orc and goblin army. So why not? Here's 100 points, or 200 points, or 300 points, depending on the size of the army, of extra orcs and goblins you're taking. Why not? Just add it to the army. You could even take those points and split it between 2 different mercenary armies. So yeah, I mean, if you have a little bits and bobs from another one, you want to start something new, you could go, well, I have 300 points of mercenaries. I'm going to grab 150 points of orcs and goblins. I'm going to grab 150 points of vampire accounts, and I'm going to add it to my high elf army. We're going to rock out. So that's really cool. But the other really neat thing you can do in the game is not take any mercenaries if you wish. Okay, why would you do that? Well, this is why. So let's just say you're going to decide you're going to play a 1,500 point game. So if we do some quick math here, that works out to roughly 300 points of mercenaries. So all your guys are picking up 300 points of mercenaries, but you decide, you know what, I'm going to be a purist. I'm not going to take any mercenaries. So what do you get? Well, guess what? For every unit of mercenaries you don't take or use up in points, you actually convert that to coinage. So it adds to your bank. All right, well, that's cool. So now, all of a sudden, I'm winning the game before the game even starts. You have a lot more resources to use on treachery cards. But here's a really neat thing you could do with your bank. All right, so mercenaries bring mercenaries. Guess what? Aren't very loyal. So first off, you got to understand that anytime you take a mercenary, regardless of what it is, they're going to be suspicious allies, which means you're not going to be able to use the leadership, the general, and what have you. The other really neat thing you can do as a player with other mercenary units is you can get them to not function. What the heck do you mean? You could actually start bribing them. So if we get over here, Mike, if you get a picture over here, let's assume for a sec this pack of cards is an actual unit. I'm going to bribe that unit. And the way that works is I'm going to place 2 brass tokens right beside that unit and say I'm bribing that unit, preventing that unit from doing anything that round. My opponent would then have the opportunity to counterbid. He has to beat my bid to get his unit to cooperate. If he doesn't, that unit does nothing. If he does, I'm getting him to spend my resources. And guess what? Since I didn't take any mercenaries, I start off with more anyway. So no big deal. So that's one way you can use the coinage in the game as well with mercenary units. Now let's get down to the actual scenarios. Now I got to say these scenarios are absolutely a ton of fun. It is kind of hard coming up with scenarios for a multiplayer game. One of the ones we started using here in the store is treachery cards, mercenaries, and center ground. An example of a scenario in the actual book. I'll place it right here so you can get a close up on it. But basically, what it is the unit closest to the center starts scoring 100 victory points at the end of every round. So as long as he holds that center, he scores. He keeps on scoring cash every round. So there's a fight for the center of the table. The problem with the center of the table, of course, is you're surrounded by enemy. So you're always going to have to make a choice, a rather difficult one, on whether you want to plunge into the center or not. There are all sorts of scenarios like this in the actual book itself. The other really cool thing about the book, they go into historical scenarios. So they'll start talking about historical scenarios between high elves, dark elves, empire, and what have you. And then at the end of that section, so in this case, it was empire, dark elves, and lizardmen. At the end of that section, after talking about the history and the backstabbing and what have you, and of course, really cool images of their models, they actually present the historical scenario in the actual book so you can actually reenact it. My last comment on it, I don't think I've ever had so much fun playing Warhammer as I've had playing Triumph and Treachery. No word of a deal. They're not paying me anything to do this. It was just an absolute blast. The politics that happen in a game like this, when one player starts getting ahead and all the other players are starting to try to shaft him to get him right back down, was just an absolute blast. I highly recommend Triumph and Treachery. It's got to be probably one of the best products they've released for fantasy in a really long time. My name is Lionel Miranda. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and please check out the links below.